I'm in Ojiva in southern Spain, in Cortijo Romero, which is a personal development community. And I have the pleasure of meeting David from Israel, but in fact he's originally from London. David, tell me about how you became an Israeli, how you became a Kibbutznik, because you're now 80 years old, which is a grand age, and I would like to know how the kibbutz was at the beginning, what your journey was, how you got there.
I'll leave out the early years of my childhood.
Oh, no, I don't want that.
You don't want that. As a matter of fact, why don't I start at the point at which I arrived in Israel?
Exactly.
I arrived in Israel at the age of 21 in the winter of 57.
But you were a member of Habonim.
I was a member of Habonim.
And,
yes.
and what is Habonim?
Habonim is
for those who don't know.
Is an Anglo-Zionist, formerly socialist youth club, anchored very much towards young people making their homes in Israel and at the very least becoming acquainted with it.
And was that British or was it worldwide?
It belonged to a worldwide organisation, but it started in South Africa and was definitely British in my day.
Okay, yes. So you were 21 and did you fly there or did you go by ship?
No. We went on a boat.
You say we?
A group of us.
Right.
A group of us went on a boat. We were sponsored by the Jewish Agency on that trip.
Right.
I think it was the Jerusalem.
Did you already speak some Hebrew?
I spoke no Hebrew.
Right. So you went on an ulpan?
No, neither did I go on an ulpan. I went to my particular kibbutz, where there were a large number of English-speaking immigrants.
In the Upper Galilee?
In the Upper Galilee.
Yes.
And there, along the way, I learnt, through my life, I learned to speak Ivrit, Hebrew,
yes,
and to function in that language probably as well as I can function in English.
But that's a very difficult language. How many years did it take you?
Actually, it is a very simple language. It has simple construction. It's an inflected language. You learn the rules and you can speak.
With or without the vowels?
Without the vowels.
Wow. I never managed that. Okay. And how did you find the kibbutz? Because the State of Israel was only 9 years old. It began in 1948, as most people know.
The kibbutz, when I got there, was, by my standards, a very primitive, rough community in physical terms. There were small white houses and some huts. There were communal bathrooms and lavatories. There was a wooden dining room, which was a large hut, where we sat on benches around long tables.
If I recall, you had to get up at about 4 in the morning and have your breakfast.
Depending on the work.
Right.
If we worked in field work, we started early because those were
of the sun.
The exigency of life altogether. Because of the sun, it wasn't possible to work in the afternoon, so you started very early, sometimes 4:30. As soon as there was light, you were actually there working in the field.
And what time did you finish?
Oh, somewhere around 2. But
and then how would you spend the afternoon?
Trying to sleep in the heat.
And then?
In the evenings there was supper, which was
early?
Which was not a heavy meal, and people worked long days and slept a lot of hours.
And did you share your accommodation with someone? Was it like a dormitory?
I lived for a while in a room with another guy. We parted company because he insisted on keeping his bicycle in the room.
What was wrong with that?
Well, it just wasn't enough space for 2 beds and a bicycle.
That sounds like the title of a book.
Yes, it does.
Right.
But mostly I slept in a room of my own. until I was married, which was a very small room. It was about 9 foot cube, 9 foot in each direction.
And what other jobs did you do? Because I know that you are multi-talented, multi-tasked, you might say.
Well, in the old days, people worked to the dictates of the work itself, which meant that you had a work arranger who gave you every day your task for the following day. Later on, everybody seemed to drift into a semi-professional or trade branch.
What kind of trade?
Well, it could be anything from plumber's mate to tractor driver to lorry driver to all the less
So you
skilled.
were taught all these trades, of course.
Well, apart from the things that you needed to learn, because to be a lorry driver without training is not a good idea. There were things you could pick up as you went along. And you didn't stay in them for very long unless you really wanted to. And you got moved further on wherever you need. In picking seasons, you were sent to pick, whether it was apples or potatoes or whatever.
And you said, so it was an agricultural kibbutz?
Mostly agricultural,
Yes, and you said there were about 300 families?
There
or
were about, at that time, about 300 members.
members?
That means 600 adults and probably another 300 or 400 children.
Right, right. So there would have been a school there, of course.
There was a junior school there, an elementary school.
Right. Up to what age?
Up to what age? Well, up to elementary is up to 11, I think.
And then?
And then they would have gone on to a regional secondary school to which they were bused every day.
And was the contact with other kibbutzim?
Not so much in the early years, simply because there wasn't as much possibility of transport.
Oh, I see. So it was a transport problem.
It was very largely.
Now,
And also people were working so hard that they really didn't have a lot of surplus energy.
Right, right. And the Prime Minister was Ben Gurion.
At that time, the Prime Minister was Ben Gurion, yes.
Right, right. And what was the kind of the political situation at that time? What year are we talking about
This
now?
was, at the moment, 57, 58, 59,
And
those years.
what was happening politically?
Politically, the country...
Without getting too involved, of course.
Of course. Politically, the country was run by the Labour Party, who had a majority for all those years, with keen opposition from the right wing, the Likud Party, the Herut Party as it was known then. But the trend was generally social welfare, very much so, a feeling that the borders and the middle of the state also had to become developed, had to produce their full potential in order to absorb more immigrants and raise the standard of living.
So in your particular kibbutz, who were the immigrants? Which country were they coming from?
In my particular kibbutz, I was an immigrant.
Yes, I know, and obviously...
But in the area,
yes.
immigrants were mostly from North Africa, from Morocco, from
right.
Tunisia,
Yes.
who were settled in development towns in the area.
Right.
The kibbutzim were given sufficient funding to provide work for them,
Right.
some of which was very, very low-class work, such as digging ditches. I won't go into the details of that. It is interesting.
Right. Well, maybe we will in another interview because time is running out. Thank you, David. Part 1.